Hi, welcome. I'm Dina Brown, certified financial planner professional and certified divorce financial analyst and the founder of Bag Lady Divorce, empowering women before, during, and after divorce. And as promised, we have a special guest today, Liz Reese of Reese Squared Mortgage. We started our conversation a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately, due to my bad, we cut it off abruptly, but now we're here to finish up what we started talking about a couple weeks ago. So Liz, thank you so much for joining us again.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you. So I'm glad we can finish it up.
Great. And why don't you just remind us who you are and what you do and why you do what you do? Please.
Sure. So my name's Liz Reese. I'm the owner of Reese Squared Mortgage, and I am a designated divorce mortgage specialist. So what that means is that I have been trained on how to specifically deal with divorce mortgage. There's lots of loan people out there, but divorce mortgage has some really important components that need to be addressed so that you can get, if you're dividing up this asset, right? This huge asset, maybe the biggest one in your whole portfolio. And there's ways to determine the real value of it besides just having an appraisal done and a payoff. There's more to it. So I don't know. I love doing it. I love the empowerment that is created by helping people in this space. It's a hard time of life. And I think that, I think your brain gets kind of fuzzy on all of the details of the things that need to be taken care of. So I just am really happy to be a resource for people to just take care of this in a way that is good, like it's done right, so it's kind of my why. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's start with the big question, which is alimony and child support. So if somebody's going through divorce and they're getting alimony or child support, or they think they're going to get it, will they be able to get a mortgage?
So in order to use that money to qualify, you need to be having received it for 6 months. And so there's some flexibility on if maybe it's not finalized, but that ex has been paying something that, it's kind of a little watery there, but as long as you've been receiving it for 6 months consistently, then we can use that as income. For it also, though, has to be a continuance of 3 years after the loan closes. So if you have a kid that's 17 years old and you're not going to receive that child support for 3 years, then we can't use that income.
Oh, great. Okay, that's good to know. So that's if we are, let's say, not keeping the marital home and we're going to buy our own home after the divorce. You're saying 6 months, you need to have the alimony child support for 6 months to be able to perhaps qualify. And then it has to be at least a 3-year commitment of child support or alimony for it to count towards qualification of the mortgage for income purposes.
And that's why it's important to have a mortgage person in your corner before you go to mediation, because you've got to figure out if that, that the alimony can be done a few different ways, right? They can give you just a lump sum, but if you're needing to count it as income, then it's got to be set up so that you're going to get a payment for the next 3 years. So that's how you're going to qualify for it.
And I've seen in some of the cases that I've worked with, I've seen where the woman going through divorce, she gets a lump sum settlement and she doesn't get any payments towards her alimony. And you're right, she has tried to buy a home and get a mortgage, and unfortunately, because she doesn't have any income, she might have walked away from the divorce with $2 million, but without the income, she wouldn't qualify for the mortgage. So that's
right.
Point.
Yeah. So it's important to figure it out before you get to the point of no return, really.
And that's where it comes down to also working with the CDFA, is looking at what are you trying to accomplish, and how do you see your life after the divorce? And if one of those things is buying your own home, Does it make sense to buy it cash, or does it make more sense to get a mortgage? And if so, those are things that need to be figured out before the mediation, so you're prepared, so you know what to get out of the mediation and get a settlement as close to what you want
Right.
during that mediation. So that was an excellent point. What if you, let's say, you currently have a home with your spouse, you're going through divorce, and you think that there's a mortgage on it, and you're thinking that you want to keep the marital home. What kind of advice do you have concerning that?
So you want to treat that buying out your ex, you're basically buying your house from your ex. And so if we're going to buy a house in a traditional sense, we're going to want to have an inspection done, right? We want to find out what is wrong with the house.
Mhm.
So I always suggest that people get an inspection done. They're not very much money, maybe $500 or $600, and you can
Mhm.
figure out all the things that are wrong. Because if you buy the house from your ex, you're like, we've lived here 20 years, we built the house, everything's fine.
Mhm.
If and then you've bought that from your spouse, you're responsible for all of it. So we had a client that recently they were selling their house, and not divorcing, but just selling their house. Gorgeous home. It was their second home, so they weren't there a lot. So I mean, it was like pristine shape. And they
Mhm.
had an inspection done and discovered that underneath the house, water was gathering, and basically the underside of their house was rotting out, and it's like a $40,000 repair. Well,
Oh.
if this was a divorce case and she was buying out her ex, she would have thought, this house is great, it's in great condition, it's perfect, there's not even a scratch on the floor. But she would then have been stuck with this $40,000 repair. So it's important to do the inspection, because you need to find out what's wrong with your house. It's as much the husband's responsibility as it is the wife's. And so that's something I think you'd want to split up and figure
Mhm.
out. So that's like the
Mhm.
number one thing, actually.
That's huge, and most people don't even think of doing that at all. And I think that you just never know what's going on behind the walls of your house, and it's better to be safe than sorry. If you're gonna, acquire one of the biggest assets you probably have, you should know whether or not it's going to need repair, because that's something too that you can negotiate in the mediation. If you're going to need a big repair, perhaps you don't want to keep the home, you want to buy your own home after the divorce, or maybe you want to negotiate for those repairs and get some more money on your side so you can make those repairs without taking it out of the split that you had already thought you were going to take. So,
Right. Yeah. Negotiate that. Negotiate if you are going to sell the house someday, how much is a realtor going to cost you to have done,
that's another cost
Um,
involved.
yeah, we run a title report. So you have a title company run that search, because they can find other liens that might be on the house. Um, there was one recently where they did a title search and found that her ex-husband had a child support lien on their house that she didn't even know about.
Oh my
Child,
gosh, was it from another wife he had, or?
just like not a wife. So
Oh, and she didn't
there's
know
this,
about?
she didn't know, no, but
God,
yeah, isn't that crazy? So there's things you can
scandalous.
find in title searches that,
Mhm.
that's kind of an extreme example, but it's just one of those things
Just
you
never
kind of
know. Yeah,
find along
again,
the
it's better
way.
to be safe than sorry. You just never know. I had a case once where I had a couple and they owned a lot of investment real estate, and I did a little bit of my own detective work for them. And she thought he was paying the condo dues on these investment properties and the property taxes, and he wasn't.
Oh,
And so, yeah, and so
yeah,
she wanted those properties in the divorce, but I said, nope, you don't want those if they have all of these liens against them for unpaid
right.
liabilities. And so yeah, we saved her from that big mistake. So,
Yeah, well, those are the kinds of things that you find, like there's in California, and I'm sure every state has their own thing, but there's liens that they can put on your property. There are things you're signing up for, like solar. Solar is really big in California. There's some like energy efficient repairs, but they put that on the house as a lien, and then it's paid back in the property taxes. Well, like that's a debt against the house. Like that needs to be split between the two spouses. And so, there's things, there's like home equity lines of credit. There's this one case where the husband was, they both have access to this line of credit, and it's basically a credit card, but it's against your house.
Right.
And that didn't get closed. And so he was using it like it was a credit card, and she didn't know. And so it's just, there's things that you find in title, like home value is not just an appraisal and a payoff. There's just is more to it. And it's really important that people work with somebody who can help them figure out really the true value of the property.
Absolutely. Those are some great tips. And then earlier, before we started recording, you had mentioned something about credit and keeping your credit report healthy. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Right. So part of the discovery phase for us is that we will pull credit and we'll figure out if there's some repair that needs to be done. If you're both on the mortgage for the property and one person in charge of the property decides not to pay it, it's going to tank the other person's credit score too. So credit is a big part of if you're wanting to qualify to buy your house or to buy a new house. And so we help people basically get pre-approved to either buy their own house or buy another house. And part of that process is evaluating credit and then cleaning up anything we might need to. Or I've noticed in some cases that, it's a couple that maybe they get married really young and it's like he's the primary breadwinner. And so all the debt goes against his name, right? Which helps his credit. And if she's not a part of that, she's not building her own credit. And so we'll get people that don't really have credit and help them get credit, how to get into a spot where they can improve their credit score or just frankly, just get a credit score. So something we run into frequently is that, if a husband and wife gets married young, maybe, and he's the primary breadwinner and, they're buying houses and cars and credit cards and all that stuff. A lot of the times I've noticed for whatever reason, it's all in the husband's name. And so the wife isn't building credit. And so part of that discovery phase and all of this, and what we're trying to help people just be eligible, even to buy their own house or another house, is we've got to run their credit. And if maybe there are some issues that we need to help clean up, but they may not even have credit score. And so we can help them figure out how to boost credit, how to get credit so that they can qualify to purchase.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent point. So we talked about if you're going to buy a home after your divorce, we talked about buying a home, not buying a home, but keeping the home during the marital home, and the 3 tips as far as checking your credit, doing an inspection, and checking the title. One other thing I kind of want to hone in on is the importance of knowing that if you do have a marital home, it's not as easy as, hey, we have a marital home, we're getting a divorce, and we can keep the mortgage as it is after the divorce. So doesn't whoever's keeping the home have to get approved for the mortgage, and doesn't it need to be refinanced?
Right. It does need to be refinanced. The benefit of doing it so if you've got the 2 people on the loan, you can't get the other person off unless you refinance.
Okay.
And if you're not keeping the house, you don't want to be on that loan anymore. It's important for you to get off of it so that you can buy your own place. Mm-hmm. And so the other person doesn't have control over your credit score. Mm-hmm. And so but it is a refinance. The nice thing about it when it comes to divorce case is that it is not considered if you're going to buy out the spouse and give them $50,000 in cash, you're buying them out. In a traditional circumstance, refinance, that's a cash out loan, and you're limited by the loan to value, meaning you can only go up to 80% loan to value if you're taking cash out. Well, in a divorce case, it's not considered cash out. It's like they are a debt you're paying off that has to do with the house. And so you can go clear up to 95%. So without it being a penalty or anything like that. So that's how it's helpful in this case, is it's not a cash out loan. So you can get more of the equity out than you could in another circumstance. You can't get any extra. So you can't pay off your spouse and then get 10,000 for new floors. You can't do that, but you can pay that.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is if someone is going through a divorce and they've decided to keep the house, number one, they need to be eligible to refinance the house in their own name, which means
Right.
that they have to have the income source to pay the mortgage. That's something we discussed earlier. They have to make sure that their credit is good, et cetera. And then number two is if they do refinance, we could use that as a tool, the equity in the house as a tool to pay off the other spouse.
Right. Yeah.
Part of it for that division of assets, which is not just the house, but all of the assets that are within the marriage. So there could be IRAs, investment accounts, money markets, cash accounts, and the home. So that's something that needs to be considered as well.
Right.
So that's a great planning tool right there, is maybe using that 95% equity to be able to cash out a little bit to pay on the other side, if that's something that you need to do. But I just really wanted to hone in on, it's not as easy as you get a divorce and everybody stays on the mortgage, and then one person gets the house, but both people are still on the mortgage.
Yeah, you don't
get
want
refinanced.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. You should uncouple that as well, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that it's hard, maybe it is hard if you want the house and you can't qualify for it,
Mhm.
that sucks, but it's important to figure that out ahead of time so you know how to deal with it.
If you don't
And that's
qualify
okay.
for it, then that's a sign that perhaps you can't afford it.
Right.
You don't want to get yourself in a situation where you don't know what your income's going to be, you don't know what your living expenses are going to be, because this is a transition, and you don't want to have this great big mortgage hanging over your head, and you have to make this payment, and there are other expenses that come up that you need to take care of, like maybe you need to get your car worked on, or the kids have summer camp that you have to pay for. I mean, things just come up all the time, and you don't want to be house poor. So it's really important, again, working with a CDFA, budgeting and seeing what are your expenses likely to be, and then fitting in the mortgage payment within that, and looking at what you can actually afford and what kind of cash flow you're going to have.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it all comes down to
Absolutely.
planning, like you said. So I think it's probably earlier if they're going through a divorce and they're just in the pre-stages of it, but they're thinking of either keeping their home or buying home. I think it's advantageous for them to get a hold of you, Liz, as soon as possible to get the planning started.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely before mediation for sure. But yeah, we are one of the first people that you really should talk to. You have an expert helping you with the law side and your side of the what to do with all the money. You need someone else on your team to help deal with this. And the nice thing is for clients is that married couples, or that situation, this divorce situation, it's covered under what's called ECOA. And so it's a protected class. So like our service to you, actually, there's no cost to it. We're helping you figure this out. We're helping the attorney put together their case file. We're doing these things with the idea that if you do move forward, we can help you with the refinance or refer you to some like a special realtor who has a designation in divorce, which would be a great conversation to have. And I don't know if you know any realtors that are out there that specialize in this, but it's good to have a divorce realtor on your side too, because there are things about it that I've heard some not great things if it's not done right. So it's good to have all of this on your side. Like we want to help you. Part of what I love about this is I feel like it's a way I can really help people. Like I can make a difference doing this. And, I love regular old purchases and refinances and saving people money and getting cash out to redo kitchens, all that's super fun. But I feel there's a purpose in this that's just really helpful. And so I'm just really happy to have it in my, what I do and to help people.
Well, your passion definitely shines through. And if somebody wants to reach out to you and take advantage of this ECOA, which is the free planning that you offer
Right.
around mortgage planning, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my phone number, I'll start with that, is 209-640-1710. You can find me on Instagram at Lone Lady Liz. That's LOAN, Lady Liz. And my website is resquaredmortgage.com. So yeah,
Is it REESE
yeah,
squared spelled out?
yeah. Just like
Mortgage.com.
right, yep. Like Reese's
Okay.
Pieces. I always think about that.
Reese's
Reese's peanut butter.
Pieces. And we'll have all your contact information down
Yeah.
in the description below.
Good.
But do you have any last words for our viewers today before we end the call?
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate having this conversation. And I think that you got this. We can figure this out for you. We can help you. However it is that you want to settle this, we have got your back and we're going to help make sure that it's
Yep.
done right.
Yep. We're in your corner, and you got to build your team. You got to have your tribe. You have your
Yeah.
attorney who's got specialty in law. And then you'll look at someone to look at the cash flow and the income and the financial planning, which is where the certified divorce financial analyst comes in. And then you have Liz coming in as your mortgage planner. So
Right.
we make a great team. So don't hesitate to reach out to Liz. You know how to get a hold of me, Bag Lady Divorce. And I want to thank you so much for being on, and thanks for being such a
Yeah.
resource.
Yeah. Happy to help.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks
Awesome.
for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.